This is a breakdown video on how I recreate this very complex looking glass into vector art using mesh tool, simple solid, strokes, gradient, opacity, effects panel such as the Gaussian blur and also feather. Alright, now let's look at the layers. Before you want to draw this kind of very complicated object, we have to break them down into separate pieces so that it's easier for us to draw and to focus on. So for example, this one here, I started out with this small circle in the center. So as you can see in my layer here, I start off with just one simple circle. And if I open my layer here, you can see that I use simple shapes with the effects like feather, Gaussian blur. I use a hard solid to create sharp highlights like this. And then I use basic shapes, basic mesh tool, and create all the layers one by one. So if I go to the outline mode by pressing Ctrl or Command Y, you can see each of the path and layers. And this one here, the edge, I also use stroke like this. So here's the tips. Whenever you want to draw a very nice curve, like this stroke over here, I always like to start with a circle shape. So let's change to a stroke. Let's change to a darker color. So let's say I want to draw a nice highlight on this circle. I'll create a circle like this, a stroke. And then what I will do is, if let's say I only want this part of the curve, I will press the white arrow and delete this part. And now all I'm left with only this part, and I will use the width profile 1, or you can just use width tool to get the shapes that you want, and I will just arrange it over here like this. And then I'll change the color to the relevant color like this. And very easily you create a very nice looking highlight. So you just have to follow whatever you see here, all the different colors, you just capture bit by bit. And as long as you capture the color accurately, you will eventually get it to look like what it is, especially for complicated looking objects like glass, bottles with a lot of reflections. You want to capture all those reflections very carefully. All right, so this is the first layer. And then after I'm done with this one, I will zoom out and look from far. As long as they look similar, then it's fine. Now moving on to the next layer, I'm focusing on this part here, okay, because it's another circle, so it's easier for me to focus on. So I use the same techniques. All right, I use some small solid shapes for the speckles, for the dust. I use mesh tool to create the difference in colors. And then again, I use simple strokes and stack the different colors. And after I'm done with this one, I'll go to the next one, which is the body of the glass. And for this, same thing. I'll use mesh tool to create parts with many different colors. Some of it, I will simplify it a little bit. All right, so all this, you can see I use different color, different layers to get the shapes and patterns. Some I even use stroke. Like for example, this one here, it's just basic strokes. All right, so it's all about how well you analyze the image, the object, and then how much time you spend trying to capture every single details that you see in the picture. The more details you capture, then the more realistic it will look. Once I'm done with the body, I'm just left with the bottom of the glass. So the base of the glass, instead of drawing it just halfway like this, I usually like to draw the whole thing so that I can easily get the shape or fix the perspective and things like that. So I hope this will give you more insights on how to redraw complicated shapes like this using the combinations of different techniques and methods.